opportunity to get anything on your mind answered. So you can unmute, you could write it in the chat, whatever you guys might want to do. And I'll work on getting the link that I was going to share with you.
I have a question from a teacher.
Sure.
So, okay. So she wants to know, she's a third grade teacher. Is the district going to be purchasing any online digital assessments in Benchmark? And if not, are there any plans to have any sort of digital assessments available for them?
Okay, so I can answer that first part.
Perfect.
Okay.
The district is not going to purchase the benchmark digital assessments. That is up to the school side if they want to purchase that.
Okay. She's just concerned that, you know, trying to like having something there from the district rather than, you know, everyone trying to find their own sort of digital assessments. So
I really wish that that would be considered because it would make sense. But
at this point, there's not that.
Right.
Yeah, the issue is when we did the adoption for Benchmark, all the digital stuff was looked at, and what we were told was it's not, no one ever uses it. You know, and now all of a sudden we're like, we need it.
Right.
We need the digital stuff, so why purchase it? But of course, times change, and but we can always put that request back into our bosses because it actually goes through CNI for adoption for the assessment, those pieces. So we can put in a request and see, and just, you know, just keep mentioning it to them, and maybe they'll actually put it on what little money they have.
Right, and I know that, well, because I'm working with the 3rd through 5th grade teachers, and they've all voiced interest in having that. So I'll just have you put that in, and I don't need to do anything further about that.
Nope, I will put it down, and the more names I have on it, more school names I have on requesting, then the better it is, the more oomph it gets.
So who would they email? So
really the people to email is Amelia Malazzo. She's the person to email. And so if you or even your principal email her and say, hey, we really, really want this piece of Benchmark, could you guys please think about adding it? Okay.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Okay.
I have a question about the progress reports. Just coming from teachers. So I know that they're looking, you know, it's okay to put not assessed if teachers have not gotten to that standard yet. But what about students who are inconsistently coming to class or only come once during the school day? Is it okay for teachers to give them ones showing they're not making progress, or do they put not assessed? I mean, I know these teachers have had conversations with parents. We've had health and wellness team meetings on several, but we're still having a hard time getting kids to come consistently throughout the school day. So they're wondering how to.
Okay, just to summarize your question, you're saying that for some of the standards due to non-participation, this teachers haven't really been able to collect much data?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, in regards to that, the guidance has been to go ahead and mark NA.
Okay.
And then the comments are going to have to be used, as well as the parent-teacher conference, to really explain that they would have had perhaps X amount of scores. And in fact, they don't. And then this can also be reflected in let's say, grade 3 in the effort.
Okay. So use the effort.
Behavior section, characteristics of personal behavior or something like that. Okay. So it could very well be reflected there in some of those areas.
All right. We just had teachers asking, do they give ones or do they have not assessed at this time? So, okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And then Heather, before we move on, I am sharing a resource. And it's gone out to some people and it hasn't gone out to everyone. During last month's TLF session,
Okay.
we had remote grading guidance, which
Yeah.
did include the NA recommendation.
Okay, and I just wanted to make sure that that was what we were really seeing before, because teachers have asked and I didn't want to give them false information. That's my biggest concern. So
Okay.
I just really wanted to clear, and I do have that, if it's the one from the summit in October, I do have it. So thank you again for sharing it, and I'll share it again
Sure.
with teachers.
This one's a little bit different. It's
okay.
It's an entire folder that has resources similar to the ones we shared last month, but then it also has some other things. And if we have time, I will open that up.
Okay,
And
thank
then
you.
I know Susan made a comment during the October TLF session. It was mentioned the BOY ice station assessment was optional. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're right. And I'm sorry that that wasn't really widely communicated. It kind of happened, I'd say, like in the middle of the ice station window, where all of a sudden it was optional. And so because the district had already recommended, all interim assessments were recommended, and they support the reentry plan and of course getting some type of data on students, it wasn't really pushed, but it should have been communicated still. And even so, our participation across the board was a lot lower. So thank you guys at Manzano Mesa for making that happen anyway, because I know you guys are always invested in that. And then Patty, you had your hand raised.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to talk about you guys were talking about the benchmark assessments. The first year we did buy them because we had a little bit of extra money. And so I think it was third, fourth, fifth, we bought them. I think only a couple of teachers used them. They were very good and very kind of like good to prepare for the the assessments that we always do in March and April. But the only thing I would say is that I did a tier 2 assessment online the other day with my students and using the tier 2 benchmark, and I just put a link and they, we kind of did it together. The first time we didn't, even when we did it in the classroom with the online assessments, we did it together so that they knew how to do the assessment first. And then a little bit, each assessment we would do a little bit less so that we're teaching them the test taking skills, how, because it's very difficult. They do try and trick you, with what do you think is the best answer? What's our pitfall? Things like that. So I think do we still have access to them or no? The district doesn't at all? Oh, okay. It was like $100 per class per year is what we paid. So I don't know. That's kind of a lot of money for, if the district was looking at it.
And then for those of you guys who joined a little bit later, I had just mentioned that this was your opportunity to just unmute, throw into the chat any of your thoughts around assessment. I shared one resource there, but other than that, we're just here to answer questions.
I was just looking at the resource you shared, and it's actually a really good guidance. I just clicked on the 4th grade one because that's what I teach. I see that it has percentage grades for the additional academic support system. Right now, a lot of our grades are coming in as percentages because we're using Edgenuity and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So can we superimpose that into the regular standards grades, or is that still progress towards goals? We were told at my school that the district came down with percentage guidelines, but
well, there's been percentage guidelines developed in the past, but that was more so for tier 3 programs for special education. And so I'm not familiar with Edgenuity and what types of I don't know what kind of data it's producing. So are you saying that they're getting like percentages as far as like completion of lessons or proficiency on lessons?
It's kind of half divided by standard, half by major exams. So it's kind of both right now. You get both. And I mean, I'm a firm believer of if they're making progress towards goals, that's a 2. If they've met the goal, that's a 3. If they've exceeded it, it's a 4. Like, I understand the traditional grading system. But we were told at a staff meeting that the district came up with 90 to 100 is a 3, 70 to 80 is a 3, 60 to 90 would be a 2, anything below that would be a 1. And I was just making sure that that's a district thing before I share it with my staff.
That's probably something I need to communicate with another department on, whomever's in charge of Edgenuity. I personally don't think that's a great idea, because that really, it kind of, the premise of standards-based grading does not revolve around percentages at all. And so it's kind of a tricky boat to be in. So was there somebody you said that did communicate that?
It was, I can't remember if the staff came up with it. It sounded like it came down from the district and it was shared with us, is what it sounded like at the staff meeting.
Okay.
But that's why I'm asking, is because I agree, like that sounded so counterintuitive to what we normally do for the standards-based report card that I was like, I'm going to sneakily double check that in my TLF section.
Right. I mean, I could see like if the lessons and the assessments are aligned to standards, then that would be really good information, but I wouldn't necessarily make that crosswalk between the percentages and the scores. So we'll have to check on that. And within the folder here that we do have an FAQ area. So we can add that into the FAQs, or you're welcome to just email me directly and we can check on that question.
Okay. And it didn't come from me because I do not want to get yelled at by my instructional council. So take that.
Not a problem. Remind me what school?
No. Colette Park.
Okay. No problem.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, and Elizabeth, I mean, just depending upon like how Edgenuity is set up, I know there is some, like way that you can weight certain things, and the weighting of it could play also a factor in the way that those percentages, are affecting that score, in terms of like how they weighted it. If they weighted like quizzes more or tests more, or even if they weighted like homework in there. And so like that may not be necessarily a percentage that is an accurate assessment of where the kid is at, let's say proficient wise on a standard. It could just be a reflection on maybe they just didn't do something, or,
yeah. And I'm one of those teachers where like I'm a firm grader off assessments. And then like if a kid tried to do work, I give them credit for the work part because that's a behavior grade. But you're right, in Edgenuity, their work counts towards their final percentage and their final standard mastery. And I'm like, but that's not how that works. So,
and that's another interesting question is like, is it talking about standards mastery, like end of year? Because remember on our current SBPR, we're grading as point in time based on what's been covered so far. And so that's an important distinction to make, is they need to kind of take I wish I was more familiar with Edgenuity, but is it really indicative of their progress up until this point based on what the lessons they've gone through, or is it end of year? Because that's going to make a difference too.
And I'm stoked we're having this conversation because I feel very validated right now. So,
oh, good.
So grades are due Friday, correct? But that's not necessarily their final grades. That's just the initial, and then you can edit them after Friday on Synergy if you need to, like if kids turn in stuff late or whatever, right?
Right, exactly. Okay. It's a soft deadline, I guess you could call it, just to really try to stick to the negotiated agreement, which is technically 3 working days after the close of the trimester. And so we know there's a lot of entries to make, including comments and whatnot. So yeah, it's open for editing up until December 4th. And there is, within the documents that I've shared, I think I put in the grading. I believe I put in the grading dates in there. That does reiterate that December 4th deadline.
Just double checking. Okay.
And then they're going to be posting the report cards to parent view. Those will be published or go live before parent teacher conferences sometime, but they SIS did not give me an exact date on that.
Thank you. All right. I'm gonna turn off my camera now. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Melissa, I did have a question that came up in one of the earlier sessions that I was in. And the question reflected back to whose responsibility is it to train the teachers for grading? Is it on the TLFs? Is it on CNI, curriculum and instruction? Is it OAR? Who is responsible for training teachers on that?
Well, I mean, I know this meeting's being recorded, but that's okay. So I guess right now, OAR or assessment does still own SBPR in terms of the system, the tools, and we are building a collaborative team, if you will, such as yourselves, Jennifer and Tammy, but we're really wanting to work with other departments. So LCE, CNI, and really we need a larger district plan to support SBPRs and grading across the district. And so right now there really isn't a lot of training developed. And so I don't know whose responsibility it is. I can't answer that. I'd have to go back to my department and my bosses and ask them, well, whose responsibility is that? Because that does need to be defined. And bless you all at your schools for supporting teachers in the grading, because I know that there really hasn't been a lot of formal training within the past 10 years. There was some training when we were transitioning from paper to online, but as far as the nuts and bolts of what is standards-based grading, that needs to be revived. And so if that's something that you guys feel that's important moving forward, then I would just ask for that, continue asking for that. And that's something that we can work together to develop, if that makes sense. And
Melissa,
yes.
can you talk about that again? This is Patty. So I tried to have a conversation with my staff about grading, telling them, because you always talk about point in time. So I think if we were talking about ingenuity, if you're doing a percentage that's an average, that's not a point in time, correct?
Well, it depends. I don't really know if they get like a percent score for a certain lesson or for all lessons. So yeah, it's probably likely an average. Good point.
But what you're saying is that what we're supposed to report on the report card is what they can do now, not based on, right?
Correct.
Okay, sorry about that.
No,
Sorry about
no
that.
problem.
Oh, someone's calling me. All right, thank you. But can you restate that for everyone? Because I know that was really helpful when you stated about what we put on the report.
I'm not exactly sure what you want me to repeat, but just as a reminder, the rubric on the current SBPR is a point in time rubric, meaning that teachers are responsible for grading what they've taught and assessed up until this point. So we're not looking at end of year standard or end of year mastery for standards. I mean, obviously by the third trimester, if you haven't already gotten to a mastery point or taught to mastery, then by third trimester, everything's to mastery. But this first trimester, especially now, with things so up in the air and the focus on the social emotional learning, I think that we're going to find that there's quite a few NAs. And remember, the focus was also on essential standards. So those were the ones that teachers should have probably started with.
Okay, she's back.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh no, what happened?
I just decided to hide my face finally because my other computer charged. So, okay. So, what other types of questions are there? We have a lot of people online, and I don't want you guys to walk away without your questions being heard.
I have a question. For the middle of the year score, I know the window opens in December when we'll be home. And as of now, we're coming back in January, and iReady has always been open in January as well. Is there a recommendation to wait until January and do it at school, or are we going to try to get it done at home so it's the same as the beginning of the year? So I was just curious about how you want to do that middle of the year score.
Okay, good question, Lucille. So right now, and iReady are both scheduled for middle of year in December. And I know in past years, we've typically gone often through almost all of January. And so the reason for this change is because working in collaboration with the school accountability support team, they want to make sure that data is in place for the 90-day plans, which is early January, so that there's enough time to for data reflection and to integrate that into the 90-day plan. And that's the main reason for it. Now we're getting already a lot of concerns and requests about, can we extend it into January? And I knew that was going to happen. And so my team's discussing it and seeing if that's a possibility. But for right now, please plan on just doing December remotely, the way we did for beginning of year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But Lucille, I think there'll be, for iStation, there's not really going to be flexibility because the state defines that. And they have not yet said, Susan, kind of going back to what you said, whether MOY would be optional or not. They have not stated that. We're waiting. And iReady, of course, is district. So if kids aren't done, they're going to have to, I guess, I don't know. We'll see. I think there might be a little flexibility with iReady to extend a little bit into January personally. But we'll see. Oh, is there a question in chat? Oh, someone's saying, are we really coming back? I don't think we know yet. I have not heard. I know that, I mean, if so, it's like phased in hybrid. I can't say. I haven't heard. Any other questions?
So I heard on here, I guess, that iStation was optional at the beginning of year. So, but our school, I think, well, our principal was saying that that's the data that we're supposed to use for the 90-day plan. Is that the case? Like, is it supposed to be iStation data that you know? Because then it would,
Well,
I don't know. She's saying that's what the PED wants, or that they want to use the iStation, or that somebody, maybe the district.
well, typically K through 2 is the mandated piece, K through 2 reading for iStation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only part that's usually required. And so that's when the state halfway through the window said that that was optional.
Even for K
And
through
then-
2, it's optional? Okay,
Yes, it ended up being optional for K through 2.
okay.
But we did get, quite a bit of participation, still not as much as in past years for obvious reasons. The challenges with technology and remote testing. And so for the other grade levels, they could have either used iStation or iReady for reading and math.
So one thing that in the last newsletter that you guys sent out, and it had the iStation oral reading fluency. So that one, like I shared it with my staff, and they were so like happy about it, because it's really hard with the other iStation tests, because we feel like parents helped the kids, and so we don't think their scores are valid, and so that's why we didn't really want to use that data. But with the oral reading fluency, it's so easy to give, and you can hear the kid reading, and it scores it, and I mean it's really amazing. So I don't know how many of you guys have had a chance to use it yet, but I shared it with them, and all the teachers were so excited about it. And it's super easy. It's just they log into iStation like normal, and it records them reading the 3 passages, and it gives them scores. And then you can hear them reading, you can share it at conferences, and we feel like that data is a lot more reliable than the other iStation scores. So anyway, I don't know if we can use the oral reading fluency data, or if it just has to be the overall data for our 90-day plan, or what are other schools using for your 90-day plans? Because that's kind of what we're working on that now. I don't know.
I think it could be part of your 90-day plan, but I think that it's probably not used across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And the results would be kind of difficult to compare year after year, or benchmark over benchmark. So I think that you could incorporate that in maybe to the focus areas and some of those other parts of the 90-day plan. And I'm glad that you guys found those useful.
Yeah, they're really great.
Okay, well, I will stick around as long as I know you guys might have another session to go to, but I'll stick around here for as long as you guys need me to. And I'll put my email address in here, or you guys can just email assessment@aps.edu, and I will get that message if you have any additional assessment questions that I didn't get to. Or if you're not the test coordinator, just go talk to your test coordinator, and we can get you guys the answers. Any other?
I have one more question about the thing that you shared on here, for the report cards, the guidance documents. How do I put that? Like, if I wanted to share it with them on our Google Drive at our school, can I do that? Because it wasn't letting me. How do you do that?
Oh, I think there should be, let me paste that link in here again.
Okay.
Or,
because
I think if anybody with the link should be able to access it, and I don't have the link here. I have to go back and retrieve it.
Because I saw you could get a link to it, but how do I put that in Google Drive? I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I think you just have to share the link with them, like through email or something. And then once they open it.
It's where it's housed. It probably will not allow you to do you know how you can do like
share it,
a shortcut.
Yes.
And if it's not allowing you to do that, just share the link. I'm almost positive it's where it's housed. Just won't allow you to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for those.
Do you have the link then?
Yes. Susan just put a shortcut into her school's drive. So I guess maybe it is working.
So you could put a shortcut. That's what I need to do.
Yes. Put a shortcut. You just shortcut the whole folder.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much.
I have a question regarding the SBPRs as well, but this has to do with filling it out. Because in the past, teachers have been told that, we had to fill out and grade every standard. But if you haven't covered a standard, is it okay to put NA at this time due to COVID? I feel like we're moving very slowly, and we're still on, for fifth grade, we're still working on place value and so on, which is numbers and operations one for fifth grade.
Right. That makes total sense. And the answer to your question is yes. You can certainly put a lot of NAs on the report card because a few of the things we mentioned, I mean, the slower start with the social emotional learning, just getting situated with remote learning. And then again, that focus on essential standards, we didn't get to everything. And so that's perfectly acceptable if you have quite a few NAs. You're going to grade whatever you've taught and assessed at this point in time. So that is acceptable, but we just have to explain that to parents so that they understand that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that folder, it actually has a blank report card for each grade level. And the CNI group has highlighted all of those report card rows that are essential standards that you probably got more of graded. And they also highlighted the very important and the important standards on the blank report cards for reference.
Melissa, there's been a few questions in the chat about iStation.
Okay.
So the first one was that they asked if iStation progress monitoring at the start of the year each month, is it optional for this year, the progress monitoring?
Well, since beginning of year was deemed as optional, progress monitoring is optional right now. Once we find out about middle of year, then if that's still optional, then progress monitoring will remain optional. But we do recommend that for kids, especially who scored in levels 1 and 2, to do the monthly progress monitoring.
And then they kind of, in that same regards, is iStation going to be optional for the rest of the year as well?
So we don't know yet. The PED has not said whether middle of year will be. And then nobody knows about spring testing. We don't know anything about 2021 quite yet. So we'll see.
And Corinne shared something in the chat. Corinne, do you want to kind of give us a little heads up about what that is that you were sharing?
Sure. So it just seemed like it might help with some of the initial questions, but it does talk about just how to take the snapshot of what you've taught that far, and then make a rubric, and how to communicate it with your parents and with you, and then also to determine how you're going to score certain things for that line item and how you're going to weight them. So if anybody would like to use it as a resource or use it as a stepping stone, feel free. And just in that Google Doc folder, there's a little okay. I'll see if I can fix that error, but there's just a little video with me explaining the resources. That way you can go through it if you want to, but I don't have to take your time now to do it. And I'll go see if I can make sure that it's available for everybody, and I'll put it back in the chat again.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Okay, well, it's 9:04. Any other questions? Oh yeah, here's. Oh no. Oh, I thought I hung up. Okay, let's see. I tried to click on your link, Corinne, and if it opens, it's not working.
That's okay. I'm not sure why it's not working, but I'll see if I can change it to everyone access.
Okay.
I think it already was, but I'll do that real fast.
Sounds good.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. We are finished. I know this link will probably be used for another purpose very soon. So I would like you guys to have a great day.
Bye, guys. Have a good day.
Corinne, if you want to send it just to like Melissa, we can make sure maybe we get those documents like in that other folder, Melissa. Would that work? Okay.
Then I
sounds
also
perfect.
linked. I also linked the standardized based report card folder onto our website under TLF resources. Just letting Melissa, just letting you know. But it is for only APS are the only ones that can get into it.
I think that went really well. I had Corinne, the one that was in there, said she liked that it was more focused, with the Q&A, and that was like what was present on people's mind. So
let me stop recording.
Oh, sorry.